Right, good morning everyone. I hope everyone's having a good Monday so far. Welcome to today's webinar, which is titled How NQA Can Support Your Sustainability Ambitions. Hopefully everyone can see the screen and hear me okay, but please let me know if you can't. So as you can see on the screen, my name is Dixon and I will be hosting today's NQA webinar. So if you haven't been to one of NQA's webinars before, then welcome, and if you have, then welcome back. Okay, so to start with, this is just a brief slide to introduce you to NQA. It's really just to highlight some key information about NQA and who we are. As you'll see on the screen, if you haven't come across us before, we're a global world-leading certification, verification and training body with sites all around the world. We work with a number of standards across a range of industries. So we do also host webinars in a number of these specialised areas, so something to keep an eye out for as well. Okay, so if you've not met me before, there I am on the screen, Amber Dixon. So I've been with NQA for roughly 4.5 years now, and more recently positioned as NQA Sustainability Assurance Manager for about the last year or so. So my role has an overarching responsibility for the up and coming sustainability services at NQA. Some of you may be familiar with standards such as ISO 14064-1 or PAS 2060, for example. So this is a key area of my role, along with the wider sustainability proposition for our clients. I also look at NQA's internal sustainability, which we'll briefly touch on today, and consider how we move this forward. So some important information for the webinar is on the left-hand side of the screen. The webinar should be roughly 45 minutes long, although this one is probably going to be around sort of 25 to 30 minutes. It's slightly shorter. So there is an option for questions throughout, which I'll pick up at the end, but you can ask the questions throughout. So there's a questions and a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you use the chat box, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to keep an eye on that. But if you can pop your questions in there, then we'll run through a Q&A at the end of the session. I'll try and keep an eye on this, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. But anything that we can't pick up today, then I'll be able to come back to you on at a later point as well. Okay, so with that in mind, 2 questions that come up every time is, 1, will you get the recording of the webinar? And the answer is yes. So that will go out on our YouTube channel, and we'll send you a link to that. And the second is, will you have access to the slides? And again, the answer is yes. So we'll send you out an email shortly after the webinar, which will have the slides, and it will have a link to the recording on as well. So not to worry about scribbling anything down or anything like that, because it will all be circulated to you at the end. Okay, so just to run through what we're going to be looking at today in a little bit more detail, there is a webinar agenda on the screen. So we'll firstly be having a look at what we mean by sustainability, more specifically what NQA are doing in regards to our own sustainability ambitions, and what being sustainable means to our clients. From there, we will have a look at how our services map to environmental, social and governance criteria, and then we'll have a more focused look at carbon related services and how this prepares clients for future net zero ambitions. We'll then run through our new sustainability training suite, which is launched today, and include a range of e-learning courses, tutor-led courses and lead verifier courses. So we'll speak a little bit about that. And then we'll finish up with a reminder on the tools and resources that we have available. Then, as I said, we'll end with any questions and we'll go from there. Okay, so to begin, I wanted to run through a quick brief as to what NQA is doing in terms of our own sustainability ambitions. So we have a number of projects and behind the scenes action going on, which goes further than what you can see on the screen, of course, but here are a couple of points that we wanted to highlight. So firstly, you'll see that NQA has made a commitment, signing the Pledge to Net Zero campaign. Essentially, this means that we have affirmed our ambitions and commitment to net zero by pledging to comply with 3 main criteria. So for those who aren't familiar with the Pledge to Net Zero campaign, it essentially has 3 commitments that you have to adhere to. The first is that we have targets in line with the climate change scenario, so the 1.5 degrees Celsius. The second, that we report on our emissions and reductions. And the third, that we release research or thought leadership to the public. So this is something that NQA is really excited to be a part of, and we're looking forward to all the progress that will come with signing the pledge to net zero. Next, in regards to compliance, you may have seen, if you follow NQA closely, we've become carbon neutral ourselves in the last few months. In doing so, we're copying with the outputs. We're working with the outputs from the PAS 2060 standard, so we're complying with all of the requirements of PAS 2060 and becoming carbon neutral. Although we've calculated our carbon footprint for a number of years now, I think 2019 was our first year, it was 2021's data where we first achieved carbon neutrality. So this is for our UK and Ireland operations, and something that we're really proud to be doing and continue to do. So it's really important for us as a business to put ourselves on the same journey that we're relaying to our clients. So some more information about that on the website as well. So speaking with clients, as you'll see on the bottom left of the screen, the core focus for us in how we support sustainability ambitions, as well as providing our verification and certification, is really about driving down emissions relating to the delivery of our service. So this is going to support our clients in reducing their scope 3 emissions and all of those kind of things. Not only this, but we're developing the culture at NQA to address a wider variety of sustainability topics. So this has included setting out new and refreshed policies, covering an environmental, social and governance perspective. You can see on the screen, I'm referring to our NQA sustainability promise. Not only that, but we're also implementing NQA's carbon management plan, which is something that we put together through our PAS 2060 compliance, and we're in the process of implementing that as well. So everything that we've spoken about just now, you can find out more information on NQA sustainability page, which is updated through our microsite and can be navigated through our main web page. Any questions around NQA sustainability are always welcome to come through myself as well. Okay, so moving away from NQA and what sustainability means for our clients, as I'm sure many of you will have encountered, sustainability is definitely a buzzword and a topic that's becoming increasingly difficult to avoid. Many of our clients are considering sustainability for a number of reasons. It goes way beyond this screen, but we tried to narrow that down just to 4 points to share with you today. So for a number of businesses, there has been an increase in pressure coming through from the supply chain. So this is typically from organisations who are looking to work with suppliers who are more sustainable and can support their responsibility through matching or beating their ambitions. So with this in turn, it helps to drive down those scope 3 emissions in regards to carbon, as I just mentioned with NQA's focus for our own clients as well. So there has also been a growing number of requirements and regulations encouraging businesses to become more sustainable. Consider the government policy on procurement, for example, which is PPN 0621, which some of you may be familiar with. So this requires businesses of certain criteria to report and reduce their carbon emissions. So that's just one example of many. With all of this in mind, it is a no-brainer that becoming more sustainable will give your business a competitive advantage when it comes to winning new contracts and maintaining existing ones. But not only this, with an increased focus on energy and consumption, this in turn can create a number of cost savings and benefits, which, as we all know, is hugely important right now. So lots of drivers for our clients, lots of drivers for different businesses and different kinds of industries. Okay, so on the screen, you can see 3 different columns for environmental, social and governance. In order to support businesses with not only environmental but a wider ESG criteria, NQA have mapped out our core services relating to environmental, social and governance factors. So under environmental, you'll see a number of potentially new and familiar services. So this includes ISO 14001, which is environmental management systems. You've got ISO 50001, which is energy management. Our carbon services, which is PAS 2060 and GHG inventory, which we'll speak a little bit more about in a moment. I'll work with Eco Campus and a number of opportunities under development as well. So in the middle, you'll see under social, there are a range of schemes which support social criteria. More specifically, we're looking at people in this column. So here we have ISO 45001, which many of you will be aware of is health and safety management systems. We've got 45003, which looks at mental health in the workplace, 44001, which is collaborative working, and 37001, which is anti-bribery. So on top of this, we have our training schemes as well, which is all there to support with people development under social. Lastly, on the right, you can see governance. So due to the nature of standards, a number of them fall into this category. As you can see, ISO 9001 at the top there is quality management systems. We also have 22301, which is business continuity, the information security series, 55001, which is asset management, and 41001, which is facilities management. Not only this, but we have a number of sector-specific areas, which you can see on the screen as well. So it varies across quite a few different platforms. Okay, so for the purposes of today's webinar, we're going to be looking more specifically at sustainability solutions relating to carbon. So as we have established, sustainability and a focus on carbon is becoming more and more necessary and definitely more and more apparent. So with government targets in place for net zero by 2050, we know that there's a number of milestones in the lead up to that, and participation from businesses is essential. So it can definitely feel like a minefield trying to navigate your way through what your next step should be, especially with no clear guidance set out by government. So while there's no linear approach to net zero, and we expect that there will be huge technological advances in order to achieve this, NQA have established a sensible approach to try and help you to best prepare for these future ambitions. So as you can see on the screen, this often begins with GHG inventory verification. This is an assessment against the ISO 14064-1 standard, which is centered around calculating and reporting on greenhouse gas emissions and removals. So at this stage, the focus is on carbon footprints and mitigation activities. Verification against this provides an initial confidence and credibility to businesses beginning their carbon journey. Not only this, but it can support some of the challenges businesses are seeing that we mentioned previously on a couple of slides previous around supply chain pressures and regulations and requirements, for example. So that's essentially our first phase. As you can see on the screen, the next stage after this, the next step would be looking at the balance of emissions emitted and achieving carbon neutrality. So once we have that carbon footprint and those mitigation activities in place, it's really taking that step towards, okay, how can we achieve carbon neutrality? So this is assessed against the PAS 2060 standard, which is a specification on demonstrating carbon neutrality. So here it focuses on carbon footprints and reductions, and it takes it that next step further and looks at offsetting and the associated documentation around that as well. So one of the key outputs from this standard is the need for continual improvement in the reduction of emissions. So this is really, really important because not only does it help with the visibility of emissions, but it ensures that businesses are driving down emissions and becoming accountable for their actions. So you're not able to just emit what you like each year and just completely offset that. There are these requirements in there that can drive down emissions and improve your performance. So really important standard. The approach to net zero will continue to evolve, but the standards set out on this page are there to best prepare you for these changes. Okay, so there's a little bit more information on this slide regarding GHG inventory verification. You can find some more information through our website and our tools and resources for more specific information on GHG inventory. But as I mentioned, this really is a verification against the ISO 14064-1 standards. It might be that different approaches are used in complying with this. So a lot of our clients work with the GHG protocol, for example, and with that you'll be working with the government conversion factors as well. So there's all kind of different factors that can support you in implementing this. but essentially it's around preparing documentation, determining what we're looking at, reporting on it, and then having that verified. And you'll see a couple of benefits on the screen as well, which we've kind of alluded to. Okay, so, and again, with PASS 2060, as you can see on the screen, we host a number of dedicated webinars around PASS 2060 specifically and the implementation of that. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for further focused information on PASS 2060. But essentially, as I mentioned, it's a specification on demonstrating carbon neutrality, currently the only recognised framework in doing so. So really what this includes is calculating your footprint, continually reducing those emissions, which we mentioned is really, really important, offsetting the total amount of carbon emissions, and documenting and validating with a qualifying explanatory statement. And again, a number of benefits on the page there, which you can find out more about on our website too. Okay, so as we have established, a lot of the feedback we get from businesses is how they can struggle to understand where to start and sort of taking those first steps in becoming sustainable, and more specifically looking at carbon and knowing what to do next. And really the next part of this webinar, and the purpose behind this webinar, is we're going to be having a look at NQA's new sustainability training suite, which has launched today, which is launched just now actually. So with that in mind, first, as you'll see on the screen, we're launching a range of e-learning courses. So the first one that you can see is around ISO 50001. So we've introduced a e-learning around sort of the basic concept of the standard, which will guide you through the fundamentals of strategy, implementation, and evaluation and improvement linked to 50001. Next up, we have GHG inventory introduction e-learning. So the e-learning course is designed to present as an overview of the GHG inventory verification and how this links to 14064-1, sorry, a little bit of a mouthful. So really what this e-learning is looking at is ensuring that an organisation's carbon footprint is calculated in an accurate and thorough method in compliance and in accordance with that standard, the 14064-1. Okay, so we're also launching PASS 2060 e-learning training. So some of you may be aware we have an existing external course on PASS 2060, but what we wanted to do was really just strip that back for those looking for an overview and a high-level introduction into the standard. So with this course, it's going to provide a high-level review of key terminology, an introduction to the requirements, and the 4 steps required within PASS 2060. So we're looking at measurement, reduction, offsetting, and documentation, as we've seen in the last couple of slides. Lastly, for e-learning, you'll see we've created ISO 26000 and ISO 21221 introduction training courses, which have been bundled together. So ISO 26000 is a standard on corporate social responsibility, and ISO 21221 is a standard on sustainable events. So 2 up-and-coming standards which are very much under development in terms of NQA, and something that we're being very mindful of. We're getting a lot of inquiries about this, which is interesting. So the e-learning course is designed to present as an overview of the standards, both of which are guidance documents to support with your organisation's sustainability approach. So these documents might be overlaid with other standards to support a wider framework towards your ESG goals. But the e-learning provides an overview as to how to adopt these guidance documents. Okay, so next up, there are a couple of new tutor-led courses which have been launched. Firstly, you'll see GHG inventory calculation and verification training. So this course expands upon the knowledge learned within the e-learning course and works with an NQA GHG lead verifier in further exploring the requirements of the standard. So with this course, you'll be able to have a go at putting the actions into place yourself using case study examples, which we found to be a really, really useful tool with our PASS 2060 course as well. Secondly, So as you can see, there is a 14064 lead verifier training. We're expecting this to launch in the new year. So all of the other ones that have come up on the screen have launched today, within the last hour or so, I believe. But we're expecting the 14064 lead verifier training within the new year. What you can do is register your interest for the course now. So the course aims to provide an understanding of the ISO 14064 standards and requirements, including recognising, quantifying, calculating and converting emissions and removals in alignment with 14064-1, which we've spoken about. But not only this, but it looks at reviewing 14064-2 and provides an understanding of the requirements necessary to carry out verification in alignment to 14064-3. Sorry, all of these standards are very similar, so you have to bear with me. So by the end of this course, it's the intention that you would have the understanding to be able to carry out GHG verification audits. So really what this course is doing is taking it that one step further for those looking to actually undertake verification activities. So it'll be a really good course when it comes. As I mentioned, we also have our existing PAS 2060 training tutor course. So there's a range of different options and points to access relevant training. Okay, so today's webinar was really a brief opportunity to highlight the different options and support services NQA can offer in tackling sustainability matters. So I wanted to finish with a reminder on our free and available tools and resources. So firstly, an update on our suite of implementation guides. As some of you may be familiar, if you already work closely with NQA, we have a number of implementation guides which support our clients in adopting standards and getting the most from them. You can find these for our management system standards online on our website, and we've recently created one for PAS 2060. So do keep an eye out as this is being released within the upcoming days as well. So lots being released this week around sustainability, which is great. Secondly, case studies. So a reminder to check out our case studies. It's a great way of understanding how other businesses are tackling their sustainability. You can listen to NQA and read what we can say, and that's definitely going to be valuable, but hearing it from another business in your same shoes is often really helpful for clients as well. So you can find access to this for our website, and we're always looking to grow this to support our businesses as best we can. So linking on to the next point around sustainability webinars and also linking back to case studies, we do have a webinar coming up on the 2nd of December, which I wanted to highlight. So that is going to be with myself, one of our NQA clients, Virgin Wines, and one of our NQA lead verifiers for carbon as well. So Virgin Wines have recently gone through the PAS 2060 process with us successfully, and will be joining myself and the lead verifier, Steve Burt, to discuss their experience, which will be really, really interesting and insightful, I'm sure. So not only this, but as I mentioned, we do have a number of dedicated webinars on specific standards and topics around sustainability. So you've probably seen some around PAS 2060 with Richard Walsh, for example, and Claire Braham, and we have a number of sort of new ones coming out in the new year as well to look at specific topics around sort of net zero and how our standards can fit into that, and some guidance on there really. So just at the bottom there, you'll see I've also made a note on here regarding our microsite tools and resources. Some of you may be aware, if you are familiar with NQA's website, we do have a sustainability microsite, which I've mentioned. So you can access this through the main website. If you go to NQA's homepage and you click on a tab called Sustainability Solutions, from here it takes you to our microsite. So if you go to tools and resources, you can find a variety of blogs, guides and events, for example. So again, definitely worth a visit if this is something that you're considering and seeking further information on. So with that in mind, that brings us to the end of this morning's webinar. As I mentioned, it was more of a brief webinar to update you on some of the changes that we've had in our support. As with all of our webinars, we have a brief slide on additional training that you may be interested in, so you can see that on the screen. So firstly, a thank you for listening to me today. I understand that really this was intended as an overview as to our support services for sustainability. If you're looking for something more specific on the different standards, then definitely have a look at our different webinars that we do and all of the resources and bits that we've spoken about today. But I hope that's provided some insight as to the potential ways that we can support you. So we'll now go ahead with any questions and answers. I'll try to get through those as best I can, and any that I can't answer, I will go and find out for you. But just a reminder, first of all, that the slides will be circulated along with the recording. So you'll see that come out shortly. Okay, so let's have a quick look. I haven't seen that any have come through. No, it doesn't look like we've had any questions. So I mean, hopefully that means that we've covered the intended outcome of this webinar, and that's answered most of your questions as we've gone along. But if you do have any questions and you want to follow it up separately, my email address is amber.dixon@nqa.com. If you haven't spoken to me before, keep an eye out for all of our up and coming webinars and all of our training suites and the bits that we've looked at. And keep in contact with us, and anything we can do to support, we're happy to do so. So thanks very much. That's the end of today's webinar.